You have queries listed, and I have 14 of them, on the left-hand side. If you want to manage those queries, I want to introduce you to a button on the Home tab called Manage in the Query group. When I click on Manage, I'm able to delete a query, I'm able to duplicate it, or I'm able to create a new query that references that query. I could also right-click the query and delete it, rename it, and duplicate it and also create a query that references it. So using the right-click method or using the Manage button are options. Alternatively, you could also just hit the delete key and that would delete that query. If you went F2, that would rename that query. And if you wanted to duplicate it, I could just go Control C and Control V, and that would simply copy and paste the sales by region query, creating a duplicate. If I then want to delete this, I'll simply hit the delete key and delete, and that duplicate is now gone. So let's have a look at some things that we can do to transform data further. I'm going to click on my Sales by Region query. On the Home tab, I'm going to use my Manage button and I'm going to duplicate that particular query. I'm then going to rename it, so I'll press F2 and I'll call it Regional Sales. Now I want to click on the Region column. And on the Transform tab in the ribbon, I want to reverse the rows in this particular query so that Whakatane is at the top. To reverse, we simply use a button here up on your Transform tab called Reverse Rows. Easy peasy. If I click that, Whakatane is at the top. If I click it again, Auckland's at the top. And I have two query steps. So I'll just delete that second query step that reversed. Okay, so I've got Whakatane at the top now. Now I want to collect two columns. I want to click on Region, and I'll hold the Control key or the Shift key, and I'll click on Year. And on the Transform tab in the ribbon, I want to merge these columns. So I've got a button over here called Merge Columns. If I click this button, a wee window pops up, and it asks me if I'd like a separator or not between the two columns. So I would like a separator, I'd just like to use a space. Though you can choose custom and include any type of separator, but I'm going to go for a space. I then want to give that column a name, so I'm going to name it Region and Year. And I'll click OK. And I've merged those two columns into one column. And because I chose Transform in the ribbon, it actually has got rid of Region and Year and transformed those two separate columns into one column called Region and Year. If I now go up to the Transform tab again, I want to transpose my rows and my columns. So if I click this, what I've now got is my data transformed into columns rather than rows. Let me just delete that and have a look again. So here we have each region and their sales, and so these will become columns with their sales as a second row as soon as I transpose the data. So transpose can be quite helpful. The other thing I want to do is now use my first row as column headings. So I'm simply going to go up to use first row as headers and click. And so that shows my first row as headers. On the Sales by Region query, I would now like to go to my Manage button, which is on the Home tab, and I would actually like to create a query that references this particular query. And I want to rename it Total Sales Figure. Total Sales Figure. And now what I want to do is count the rows that are in this particular query. And so this is a button on the Transform tab called Count Rows. And when it does that, it says there are 33 rows counted. And so I get a single answer.